Okay, welcome back to another episode of Just Stories with BT. If you're seeing the video, this is happening live. There's actually another human being sitting here with me live. This is not done via Zoom, although we're recording on Zoom, but it's not virtual, it's in person. So for anyone who ever grew up watching any show on Bravo, you know that after a whole season, they do the Bravo after the season episode to recap and rehash it. And there's always a host. So this week, I'm not in control of the podcast. It's actually my great friend CK who is. And so she's going to be the host for the Bravo After Show Season 1. So CK, welcome.
Hey, thanks, Brett. Well, it's good to be here. I can't wait to talk about season 1 of Just Stories with BT. I listened to every episode real quick. So without further ado, I want to dive right in because I know everyone's time is valuable. Just a quick intro of who I am, and then I got a lot of questions for you, Brett.
Yes.
So my name is CK, and I actually work with Brett at Avocado Green Brands. And that's not how I started. I actually went to school for philosophy, dropped out because I couldn't really afford the tuition at USC when I moved out at the time. So was working a few different jobs, from restaurants to working with kids with special needs, and then found myself in retail. And I worked in music retail for Guitar Center for about 8 years. And in that time, I realized that I accidentally stumbled upon something that I was really passionate about, which happened to be retail. And I don't know, I love music, and it was all about rock and roll for a minute there, but I really wanted to do something more with that passion of mine and find a place that really resonated with me. So then Avocado found me. I got referred to the job, started as an associate, and then 2 years later, here I am as an area manager, and Brett is one of my professional mentors. So yeah, I want to dive right into season 1 because as I'm learning more about the industry, because like most people who stumble upon the mattress industry or furniture, we didn't start off there.
Yeah.
And you've been in it for quite some time in comparison. Yes. Yeah, this is my 2 years. So Just Stories with BT. I loved it. There were a few takeaways I'd like to kind of discuss with you because as a listener, I would love to give some feedback about what really resonated.
Absolutely.
But I also have some questions after that.
Awesome.
So,
well, hold on first before you go any further. How are you going to do an introduction of yourself and then not talk about, your success as a hair model?
Oh man, how did you even know about that?
I know about all kinds of things you don't know about.
Well, yeah, my sister's the hairstylist, and she's been on a few competition shows, and I don't really care what happens with my hair because the hair grows, and so I'm like, do it. And every time I trust her, something cool comes out. Like if you're watching the video, I mean, this needs a little work, but yeah.
That's awesome. So yeah, one of the things that I wanted to do with this kind of each time we finish the season, want to get together with CK and have her go through some feedback, but then ask questions, and we can kind of follow up on some of the main things we learned from season 1, learn from the different guests. And I really want to get feedback to know what's resonating, right? Because what's the point of doing a podcast if things aren't landing with the audience, or if you're not getting anything out of it, what's the point, right? I'm not doing it just to like have people download it. I want to really make a difference, right? Which is why each season has a different theme. The first one giving back, the second one we'll talk about later. But at the end of the day, that's kind of what I want to talk about too. So yeah, before you get into questions that you have for me, just tell me what were your takeaways? And for anyone watching the video, up on the board behind, we have all 8 episodes, with all the different CEOs that we talk to each week. And then, so give us your feedback first.
Yeah, and if you are watching the video, I kind of made some notes so that I wouldn't forget to mention some of the key takeaways that I got. The number one takeaway that I got out of it is that most folks who get into giving back actually stumble upon it after something that happened in their personal life, maybe even professional. But, it's not something that comes out of an idea where they sit down, they're like, how do I give back? It happens to them. Something happens and it triggers this need to want to give back. And I can refer to, Dale's episode, both Marks, Dos Marcos. I've had the honor of speaking with Mark Kinsley, and that was really cool. But yeah, hearing their stories, I mean, it really led me to see that like most of us go through our personal struggles, and we're not alone on that. And that's what ends up driving us to want to give back and help those who are maybe going through something similar.
Yeah, I like that feedback because, I think that it speaks volumes to a lot of these people. If you think of Scott, he's this family-owned business and it's kind of generational, and then he takes it from there into this whole giving campaign. Roger, super successful, sells his business $1 million, loses his mom to pancreatic cancer. It rolls into this. Dale, same thing, super successful, finds, out about foster kids, starts working with them. The more you do, the more you're like, oh my gosh, same thing with Dan. All these stories are very similar that way. And so I think the message that I get, the takeaway I get there is that, at the end of the day, these people aren't like come out of the womb as philanthropists. Like, oh my God, I'm here to give back. Like basically none of them said like, hey, I have a long history of giving back or whatever. I mean, Kate Williams, obviously she starts out, you're doing a nuclear disarmament think tank at 16 years old. Like your brain is going a different direction, but to like end up working in the corporate world and thinking like, man, I want to go somewhere that's giving back. And then really, so all those stories that we heard should tell you as an audience member who's listening, like, hey, maybe I haven't started yet. It doesn't mean anything.
Exactly.
Like some of these people start at 50, 60, 70 years old. It's never too late to get into something giving back. But the present, the opportunity may present itself, then you got to grab it.
Exactly.
Then you got to go for it.
Totally. And that leads me to my next 2 points, actually, or 2 takeaways. So the second one is it's easier to give back than people think, right? So especially listening to Kate and talking about 1% for the planet. And actually, a few weeks ago, about a month ago, Kate hopped on an Avocado All Team meeting to present 2 awards to people who made great impacts within the month of April for Earth Month. And I thought it was really cool because it might have just taken 1% of her day, but honestly, it meant the world to everybody that, she was able to jump on the call and say something. And that's a really small example of giving back 1% of whatever it is that you've got, whether it be profit in a business or your time, your energy, your efforts.
Mhm.
And so it's the second takeaway for me, honestly, was just how easy it is to give back without us even thinking about it. You don't have to try.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was my second takeaway. And that's just one example. But the third takeaway is if you can't find a foundation right now that you want to work with, you can start your own. And that's something that I don't think a lot of people think about. We always are looking for people, businesses, what have you to work with. But at the end of the day, if you really want to do something and you're passionate about it, you can start it yourself. And plenty of these episodes, if not every single one of them, inspired me to think that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, Keith's story of kind of how he just started, he's driving down after the hurricanes they had or whatever, and it's like, or the tornado, whatever it was, and it's like every house he drives by, you just see beds stacking. He's going like, all these people are gonna need beds, gonna have no money, FEMA's gonna take forever. Oh, we'll just give them some used beds, right? And then all of a sudden, here you are, years later, now he's launching an organization, right? Basically a franchise for giving back. So anyone can do it. I mean, it's pretty incredible, like how you just stumble in, take an opportunity, and then the story that, like you said, that resonated with me was, all of these people, once they started, that became the new main thing.
Exactly.
The like original business became kind of secondary because obviously, as we all know, like when you start giving back, that's what feels so good. It's better than putting the extra dollars in your wallet. It's like knowing like, oh, I helped this person or whatever. It just feels great and seeing the benefit that's happening.
Yeah. And I really got that towards the end, especially with Roger's story too. It just really hit when, he started off working with a different foundation and then eventually started his own. So that really hit me. And then last but definitely not least on my list of takeaways, and this is huge, and I live by this anyway, but this was great confirmation, which is when you go into it with the heart of helping others succeed, it leads you to success. And again, it's not even the MO, right? You don't go in there with like, I'm going to do this so that I can succeed out of it. It's, I'm doing this to help others and help others have a better life in one way, shape, or form, any way, shape, or form, I should say. And yeah, the last episode really nailed it home, took it home for me. Dan's episode with the foster kids, like I'll never forget that story about Gigi, brought tears to my eyes. And I remember calling you actually after the episode. I was like, Brett, I'm so glad I listened to this right now and I'm talking to you, but I think I want to foster some kids now. Like, so many of these stories, actually every single one of them just goes to show when you go into it with the heart of helping others succeed, it really just brings you success at the end. And it just keeps going,
100%. And I've never seen I've been a part of some amazing organizations, some ESOPs, public companies, all kinds of different things over the last 20-year career. And I have yet to see in my life, and like, somebody, whether it's a district level, vice president, executive, who really invests their time and energy into others and making them better.
Yeah.
Whoever got like passed up by the people they made better or whatever. Because when you focus so much of your energy on others, like it's always an elevation for yourself. it just is what happens. You know, we don't go like, oh yeah, let's take the project. No, you actually like spend all this time. It's just how it rolls, and you can see it in these others when you're truly giving back and doing these programs for the right reasons. It all generates so much more positivity and growth generally that that's the person you want leading the train or growing. Does you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And that's, I guess that's the difference between leadership and management, you
Mhm.
know? So with that, so those are my key takeaways.
Yes,
And
great
I
takeaways.
loved it. So Recycled Dreams, season 1, that was the theme.
Mm.
My curiosity is what led you to thinking of that as the first season's theme or topic? Because giving back.
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, I mean, at the end of the day, there's a couple things that people probably don't know. One is obviously the podcast is on this fam.news website. Mark Hensley and Mark Quinn started. They have the Dos Marcos podcast with hundreds of thousands of downloads and all this stuff, and they really felt like the industry needed a news source that wasn't just wasn't coming from the same kind of corporate mattress furniture world that's been around for a long time. Like the industry's changing. You got all these DTC brands, avocados and the Tuft and Needles and the Caspers of the world coming in, and they were viewed originally as a disruptor. But I really think that history will look back as like this was such a pivotal time in our industry's career where we actually shot forward into like the modern era, right?
Yeah.
Like it shouldn't be about a bunch of stale, old white guys saying this is what you got to do. It's got to be about what represents actually the people buying our mattresses,
Right.
which is very diverse, male and female, all these different things, right? Like companies aren't run the way they were 30 years ago. And so we have to adapt and we got to migrate. And they wanted to create a website that would have news and articles and podcasts and not just theirs. So we had been talking a long time. I was actually on their podcast, episode 69, and super fun. That's when we became friends. We didn't even know each other before then. And since then, become great friends. And they approached me last fall and said, hey, we would love for you to be what they're calling as an artist on the podcast. So we want to offer a few different, voices besides ours. And I jumped at it. Of course, I've been thinking about it, and at the end of the day, I think we all go through a little bit of imposter syndrome with that type of stuff. Like, hey, do I have enough to say? Can I do this or whatever? But you got to push past back. And I was like, what if I was listening to a podcast, what would I want to hear about? And I'm a very story driven person. So like when I hear gripping stories, like that's what moves and motivates me the most. Like I remember it, I get, I'm attached to it. And so for me, the art of storytelling is how I want to receive information. If I had a choice, right? Like that's the form I wanted it.
Yeah.
And I know so many people like that. And I've always been told, in high school, my buddies called me Grandpa T, right? Because I'd sit around, we tell stories, and I've just always loved that. I love telling stories, and I love going back and forth with people. And so I thought, A, okay, I love the just stories idea because that's how I resonate. But then B, stories are cool, but what's the takeaway? Like if I'm going to do it, what's the point? And so I kind of thought about, hey, maybe I could do something around giving back, but then I also wanted to do something around, X. And then I wanted to do this, and I had all these ideas. And I'm like, wait a minute, I could do seasons. And at the end, there's no one telling me or anyone like how to do it. Is there a right way? Is there a wrong way? There's just the way, right? And so for me, it's like, hey, let's have a season. And why I wanted to do giving back is because I just already knew a few amazing people that I wanted to get their story out, whether it was Dale or Dan, and Roger. Like, so I knew I had these amazing connections with these CEOs. I knew that they had a connection to giving back. So it resonated that could be kind of a story. And the reason it became important to me is that it's just, it's in my DNA now, like because of the amazing companies I've worked for, that giving back is just something that you do. Like that's just how you roll, like it's part of the business plan. It's part of the success and the foundation of so many companies. And I feel like, for companies out there not giving back, they're just missing out.
Right.
Like in such a major way because their employees are missing out, their consumers are missing out. And now with millennials taking up such a massive area in the buying market, if you're not doing something to give back to the environment, the people around the local net, like people don't want to work with you. That's where it's going is like,
Yeah.
you have to do something, but just cutting a check, that's cool. But it's just, that's a one-way give, it benefits whoever's getting it for sure, but those are generally bigger corporations. It's not like at the core of it. And so I was inspired, the way this all came about for me was really, growing up in Sleep Train, cutting my teeth in the corporate world there, we had the foster kids, and that's episode 1, Dale Carlson. We learned about that. So that was just in like what I did. And then when I went to Mattress Firm, it was pancreatic cancer and what Roger had, plus we did the foster kids. So that was cool. Then I go to Living Spaces and I take over the Revive sleep department, trying to build it up into this big thing. And we didn't have any philanthropy with Revive. So the owner of Living Spaces, Grover, is this amazing guy. He donates bazillions of dollars out of his own pocket, and he doesn't want anyone to know about it because he's actually giving for the right reason. Like he's giving because it's the right thing to do, not because he wants to blow it out there. However, I used to be like, Grover, people want to know this. They want to shop at businesses who are giving back. And so my boss at the time, Luke Parker, I remember I went to him and then went to Grover, and I had an idea. I said, hey, what if Revive becomes this philanthropy arm? And we do a buy one, give one program where you buy a mattress, a certain higher level mattress, and we'll donate to a foster kid, a veteran, whatever is this idea. And I had put together this whole proposal and slides and all this stuff. And I remember thinking they're going to be like, going back and forth and not sure about the idea. And so I had money and ideas on what we would bring in and revenue. And I remember I was like 2 minutes in, and I remember like, yeah, that's great. We should do that. Just like no like hesitation. Yeah, let's try it. And so the idea for a buy one, give one came from Tom's shoes.
Right.
Because I had literally that week, I wanted to do philanthropy. I wanted to do something with the mattresses. I didn't know what. And I was listening to another podcast with this guy, Raz's How I Built This on NPR. Great podcast for anyone out there looking for something, tell stories of how people became, ultra successful. And the guy and the CEO of Tom's had just been on that week, or at least I listened to it that week. And his story resonated because it was really funny. He was in Argentina, and he literally got into this whole thing with the shoes because he was trying to impress these girls, this girl in Argentina, and which I think is funny. Just like we talked about earlier, like it wasn't like some crazy philanthropist.
Yeah.
Like he literally like trying to impress somebody, and launches this thing. But the buy one, give one really resonated with me because it's a win-win-win like everywhere.
Right.
Like the people win, they get the shoes, the salespeople feel good. So that was the idea behind this buy one, give one. And it turned into this insane success, right? And I wanted to start at a small market, so we launched in Arizona, and that's how I met Dan, episode 8, which was, I reached out to Gina Davis, who's the president of Ticket to Dream, Dale's episode 1, Dale's president, and I said, hey, do you know any agencies that work with foster kids in Arizona? And then right away they're like, oh yeah, Dan, Schufelt, Arizona Helping Hands, they're amazing, great partners. You should hit him up. So I got Dan's number. She gave me his number. So I call him on a cell phone. He picks up, and I'm just some random guy. And I basically said, hey, would you, want to accept a bunch of mattresses if we did this program? And he cried on the phone, like legit. And I remember being like, okay, like, I didn't think it was that big. It was cool, but I didn't know it was this big of a deal. But I didn't know at the time that his organization was basically spending 90% of their money, all the money they bring in, on mattresses, because they want to give kids new mattresses, not used or recycled or whatever. They want new mattresses. They don't want to put anything in the house that's could have bugs or whatever.
Yeah.
So they spend all this money to buy these really inexpensive mattresses, and then you're talking springs and fabric, not comfortable, right? And we wanted to build these really beautiful medium plush mattresses, which came from Sean at Diamond, and he gave us a great deal on them. So it's like a cool partnership all the way around. But so I didn't get it, and we end up launching the event. It's a buy one, give one. You sell a nicer, higher end mattress, and we were donating on your behalf, and the customers loved it. The salespeople loved it. And then we go and we would do the giving events. And that's where the magic happened with Dan, right? Which is he'd set up these giving events in Arizona. The whole sales team would come out, managers, GMs, salespeople, and actually unload the trucks. We'd put them in and help even doing deliveries into these new foster parents would come in, or foster grandparents, and that's where it'll get you on the episode when you're listening to these stories, but the loading into of the beds into people's cars and seeing them crying, and just how insane it is to get a child who's on the ground, up into a bed of their own, it's just mind blowing. Like, so it makes everyone feel great. And so, once that happened, that was it. Like, we just started going full bore and did, veterans and foster kids. We rotated back and forth. It became this big thing. And so obviously, like, coming to Avocado, we have a huge philanthropy arm with our mattresses, right? So all of our mattresses, basically, we have the whole set team that goes out. We get them back to, anytime someone does a return or whatever, we figure out ways to get them to people who need, which it's so same thing. It's just a phenomenal team. It's a phenomenal thing. It's something that's so core at who we are here. So I've just been blessed, right? So for every company I've worked at over the last, 17 years, has had this giving back arm, and I've seen it work at such a high level that I just wanted to get those stories out, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's really why, like, that was the kind of the idea behind it. And obviously I didn't know some of these people on this list, you know what I mean? I didn't really know Scott, you know, I didn't know Keith really, and obviously didn't know Kate. And so it was like, those were all just introductions being made or people recommended. And now, you know, I'm sure we'll be friends for life, which is great.
That's super awesome, actually. And I remember you put something on LinkedIn. It was like a little poll of like, would you work for a company that wasn't giving back?
Yes.
Like, how important is that? And after listening to a few of these episodes, I realized how easy it was, right? And how important it was to me actually in my DNA now. So if not avocado, I mean, if I worked with any other company, I feel like I'd have to know that they were giving back at some point. But on that note, it didn't start off that way. I mean, you didn't start off just jumping into the mattress industry because you wanted to give back. So I've heard a lot of your stories, but I want everyone to hear this story because I think it's hilarious.
What?
So the story about Mattress Firm and your first night going over there from Sleep Train, I think it was.
Yeah. So, oh man, I'm trying to think what version I should tell. It's like PG-13, R. So yeah, so my career was, I started in clothing apparel, like a surf skate clothing line, then went to Sleep Train, was there a long time. And then Sleep Train was bought by Mattress Firm, right? So this massive, public company. And, they called it the Great Merge or something, but really they bought Sleep Train. And so it was real awkward because, you're going from, hey, I know all the executives, we've got this amazing team, we're at ESOP, and now we got to go, you kind of have to like start over, like, hey, where's my place? And there was someone at Matt Firm that did what I do, right? So we were like, I didn't know, am I going to report to this person? Are they going to report to me? It's all weird stuff. And so no one from Matt Firm knew anyone from Sleep Train, except for like some of the high level executives. And I didn't know anyone there, nobody. And so my boss had said, hey, they do their whole learning sales training team does a big event every December where they go and they rent these houses in Galveston. So there's like 3 houses up on stilts and there's 40 some people. The whole team is there and they do like this offsite 3-4 day meeting, right? And so they game plan for the year, they do these activities, they did projects, and they, have fun, do dinners and all that stuff. And so, and my boss was this guy, Matt Anderson, who's one of my best friends, great mentor of mine. He's like, all right, we're gonna go. So we'll be the first people that anyone from Mattress Firm meets. So we'll be like the Sleep Train reps, like they'll get to know us and we'll have fun and we'll break down those barriers, kind of make this all cool.
Oh no, and it's you.
It is me, I'm like, okay. And so I'm at the airport. It's like 5:30 in the morning because I have a 6:15 flight to Houston. And I get a text and it's my boss. And I can't even remember what the excuse was, but it was like something came up, he can't go. And I'm just like, dude, no, like, I don't know a soul, and this is gonna be so awkward. Like, you gotta be there with me, He's like, I can't come, you're on your own. So you're it. You're gonna represent all of Sleep Train, like this will be it, So I'm like, good God. So fly to Houston, get there, taxi or Uber, I can't remember that Uber back then, taxi over to the corporate office, and I get there and it's like, I'm out back of this is our old corporate. And like, it's all key card to get in, I can't get in. No one's coming in now. It's Houston. It's actually freezing. It's like December. Standing out there waiting. And finally some guy comes out and then he asked me if I work here. I'm like, well, not yet, not really. It's like kind of a weird thing. And then he doesn't let me in. So I still stand out like that. Then all of a sudden all these people start coming out. And it's like, I can tell from like, because I remember looking people up on like LinkedIn stuff, like, who are these people? I recognize a few of them. Like, okay, this is the people. And no one's like saying anything to me really. And finally this one guy's like, hey, where are you? And I'm like, oh, I'm Brett. He's like, oh, the Sleep Train guy. Okay, cool. Yeah. You're coming with us. Like, hop in my car. And so it was him and another guy. And I get in the back of the car and we're literally 5 minutes down the road. And he's like, oh yeah, we're going to make a stop. We didn't get our white elephant gifts yet. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, did you bring a white elephant gift? I'm like, no, I didn't bring a white. I know nothing of what we're doing. I've never heard Galveston before. This is my first time. It's like a 40-minute drive. I'm like, I know nothing except for this is awkward as hell, And he's like, oh, we do a big white elephant gift exchange the first night every year. It's a big tradition, And so I don't know about you, but like for me, like I only know one version of white elephant, which is over the top, out of control, like ridiculous, like super funny, not cool, not anything, like nothing you can ever give anyone else, right? Unless it's like becomes the new white elephant, right? But I'm like, I don't know these. I don't know if this is a serious thing. I know people in Texas can be conservative. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, I don't know. So I'm like, okay, what do I do? And at the end of the day, I was like, F it, you gotta be you. So I go and they tell me like, let's all split up because we don't want to see what each other gets. I'm like, all right. So here I'm by myself walking around some random, Houston Target. And I end up buying a package of adult diapers. So I get the adult diapers. I get this big paste thing that's like says it's like a butt rash cream and for adults. And then I went down the DVD aisle and I found a Boy Meets World season 2 DVD.
Perfect.
So it's perfect combination, right? And I get this like bag to like this like a magazine kind of thing because I wrapped it myself, Literally go to the tape aisle and like taped it all and then like scanned it. It was pretty funny. I walk up and the lady's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Well, I gotta have this thing wrapped." So anyways, I get in the car and we head up and I'm nervous, right? Because I don't know everybody. And I'll never forget, we get there and there's like these 3 huge homes up on stilts, literally that like the bottom levels are like just cement, because the floods and the hurricanes. So like the houses are up above. We go up above and everyone's like getting rooms and stuff. And they're like, "Oh, you're in this outer room." It was like a separate like granny flat kind of out on the side with these 2 guys. So, and they already had a room. So I'm on the couch. I put all my stuff down, walk over to the house and it's lunchtime. And so here's my first time. So I'm kind of meeting people. I'm super nervous. And meeting people slowly. "Hey, how's it going?" But no one's really talking to me. And everyone's making sandwiches and they go outside on the deck, big, beautiful deck. It's a sunny, kind of beautiful winter day, looking out at the brown ocean. So I'm coming to California. It's like brown. There's trash everywhere on the beach, but still nice. And I remember I sit down and there's like an older gentleman who was like one of the like training guys. And he's like, "So Brett, where are you from?" I'm like, "Oh, San Diego, California." "California?" I'm like, "Yeah, California." And he just goes, he's like, "Well, my son moved out there, and the next thing you know, my grandson, smoking weed in the garage with everybody, just like y'all do in California." And like dead serious, it's not a joke. And everyone at the table is like smirk, like like wincing, like because they're embarrassed for him. Like, dude, come on, it's a new guy. Like they understand, like probably not every person in California does that. But I just look right at him, don't skip a beat. And I just look right at him and and I go, "Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I think my son at the time was like 5 or 6 or something, but I was like, "Yeah, my son, I think he just turned 6." And we were trying to figure out like when's a good time for him to start smoking weed. And we just figured this winter, actually, we just had was a good time. So yeah, I mean, he's just like everyone else, hangs out in the garage, with us. And the guy just like, I mean, all the color in his face just dropped, and everybody else knows I'm joking, obviously. And then finally I start laughing, everyone starts laughing, and he's like not registering. Like that's how much he's convinced that like people in California, that's all we do, and apparently smoke weed with our kids. It was just like, and this is like my introduction to Texas, I'm like, okay, Texas, cool. So then actually, then this is funny. So then we did some stuff, we did some activities or whatever throughout the afternoon, getting to know people. And then we did a big dinner before the White Elephant gift exchange. So this was the second thing that like taught me like, okay, you're not in California anymore. Like, so this is a business trip, right? I mean, this is a work event. And I'll never forget, there's like a guy there that's kind of leading the whole thing. He was kind of like an MC kind of thing. Sure. He like did activities and all kinds of stuff. And he was also like, very religious guy, right? And I can't remember if he's a pastor or something like that, but very religious, just like a lot of the people who were there. So he's like, "Okay, everyone gather around." We had all the food out like in this one big house, and there's like 40 some people, right? Gather all around. And then he's basically like, "Okay, I'm gonna bless the food." I'm like, "Okay." And basically people like start, holding hands or whatever. And he goes into, when I say I'm talking like a come to Jesus prayer, like legit, like I mean, like he's giving a sermon. I mean, like the full on, like, "If there's anyone here who does not know the Lord, I hope you burn on their heart," and like this kind of thing. This is a work thing. I'm coming from California thinking like, am I on a show? Like, is this like I'm on some prank show? But it's like legit, and every 42 people, eyes closed, fully, non-head, like into it. I just remember being like, "Oh my gosh, I'm not in Kansas, like I'm definitely not in California anymore." It's just funny, you know what I mean? Like it didn't like offend me or anything. It was just really funny. And I just remember thinking like some of the people I worked with in California would be like just really uncomfortable right now, So anyway, so we have the dinner and everyone's drinking, thankfully, because I was so nervous earlier that I bought all this tequila so I could make margaritas. Nice. Because I knew I was gonna be nervous, and they have this horrible at the time. They probably have good beer there. I know they do actually, because I was in Texas last time, and they had some good new IPAs and microbrews. But at the time, all they had was like Budweiser and Shiner Bock. And so, which are, in my assumption, very gross. And so I was like, we got to get some stuff to make margaritas. And I'm like, well, we got to do it now because you have to like, there's no liquor sold in the stores. It's like separate stores. You have to buy it by a certain time. So we go on a run, we get it. I'm making margaritas. I got the blender going. Like, so I'm like now margarita guy. Like, so at least like I'm something, right? I'm not just like have your kids smoke weed in the garage guy. So I'm margarita guy, making margaritas. We're having a good time. And in the angst starts setting in a little bit. Because it's this big, beautiful tree that got set up, gifts all around it. I mean, people have gone off. I mean, their wrapping's nice. It's like everyone's looking legit. And mine's all jacked up in the back, taped together with like pages. And all I kept thinking was like, please just don't pick mine first. You know, because I'm thinking like, if it turns out this is super serious, then I'm going to go around the tree and I'm going to kick mine like down the hall or like whatever. I don't care. I'll just grab it and say I'm sick and go to bed. So this guy, Dan Hornstein, who's actually a stand-up comedian now, shout out to Dan. He gets the #1 pick. And it's like one of those things where you get picks, you know, so 1 through 40 time, I'm like 6 or 7 and there's all these rules, time and all this stuff. So he gets up and he's like walking around and kind of doing this thing, looking around and kind of having it up because he's first and everyone's watching him. And I remember he like grabs like this nice wrap gift and then he kind of like, and I had purposely put mine like kind of around the back so people wouldn't see it. He's like, you know, what's that kind of thing? Walks over there, grabs mine.
Of course.
And I'm just like, oh my God, no, like why is this happening to me, you know? And so he gets it, he brings it back and he's on this couch and there's all these kind of people on the couch. And like I said, everyone's big house. And he sits down and he like rips it open and he's just staring. And it's like the moment and everyone's just looking, you know? And all of a sudden, like he starts like going like this, you know? And like if you're on the video, you can see he's like pulling and stuff. And I'm like, what is he doing? Well, what he's doing is he's opening the diaper pack. And then all of a sudden he pulls one out and kind of turns around the couch a little bit and pulls one out and he puts it on his leg. His other leg pulls it up. Now he's got the adult diaper on and he's like starts dancing around and like everyone starts dancing. And he starts throwing diapers to like different people in the audience and everyone who grabs the diapers puts them on. And next thing you know, it's like, we got our margs, we've got diapers, all of us up these adult diapers, and everyone's dancing in the middle. And I'm like, dude, yes. I'm like, this is amazing. And everyone became, you know, like instant best friends, you know. And so it was such a funny night. And we end up like, there's actually 2 more super funny things that happened, or 3 actually. So the second thing was that I got a Nerf gun. That was the present I got, like a Nerf gun. And so all my buddies, you know, David Arica, Brandon Cossey, Todd Reich, Scott Higgins, all the guys, the old school sleep train guys, we used to have Nerf guns in our training class. And we had targets and we would like shoot during, when we were, you know, we're grading quizzes at night. We would always fire these things off and we would make our training classes at the end of the night, target shoot and try to stick it for things and they'd win points and chips. And it was just like a way to have fun. But we also used to play a game where we would lick the end of the Nerf darts and we would, you know, kind of back up like this far away. And you'd go 3, 2, 1 and you shoot at the same time and you try to see who can get it to stick on someone's forehead. So of course I taught everyone this game. You
gotta miss that.
Yeah. And so everyone's playing this game. You know, we're out on this balcony, we're shooting, so we're trying to stick darts. But that was the week that iPhone launched the slow-mo video. So everyone had gotten the new iPhones or updated, and all of a sudden you had slow-mo feature. And so I just remember all the videos. My phone storage literally was gone in one night because I had like 60 slow-mo videos of us like getting shot in the face. It's like, wow, you know? And so I remember we walked back to one of like the house we were in was like next door. And we walk over there and I hear all this yelling and people are like freaking out. And I'm like, what is happening? We like walk in the bottom. Everyone's around the ping pong table and they're like, oh, we're playing Red Belly Pong. Have you heard of this?
I have.
Red Belly Pong. So Red Belly Pong is this amazing game where everyone gets around the ping pong table and you hit and then you move to your right and you hit and you move to your right. And so as you're playing, if you hit the net or you hit off, then you're out. So there's the big group, 10 people, and it just keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And when you get down to the final 2 people, then you have to hit and then spin a 360 and hit and spin a 360. So I'm playing the first time and I grew up, I mean, I can play, you know, like Pong's like my thing. I grew up, I played like a bazillion games of ping pong. And I was in a tournament when I was in 3rd grade, maybe I've gotten to the end. Anyway, so I get down to the end and then I'm like pitting and spinning. I'm losing my balance. I hit it off and everyone's laughing or whatever. And they're like, line it up. And I'm like, line what up? And they're like, you gotta go on the wall. I'm like, what for? And they're like, dude, the game's Red Belly Pong. I'm like, what does that mean? They're like, go on the wall, pull up your shirt. I'm like, what? So there's all these people. Granted, I've known them for what, like 9 hours? Go to the wall. You got to pull up your shirt. And then the person who won sits there and hits the ping pong ball as hard as they can at your chest, trying to hit you and leaving a red mark, right? So that's why it's called red belly pong. It's hysterical. So literally, you can be last to like all the way to third and nothing happens. But if you're second, nothing.
I mean, you can't jump into a game called Red Belly Pong and not expect to be smacked.
I don't know, I don't know. They could have prayed. They should have prayed about that earlier. For anyone later who's playing red belly pong. And so it ended up being amazing, and I learned a lot of things that week, and actually what's cool about that story, I'm glad you asked, is that story that weekend is when I first realized how underrepresented females were in like our leadership executive roles in the mattress furniture industry. And I know we'll talk about that in a minute, what season 2 is all about, but the reason I realized that was because, Mattress Firm had actually done a really good job at hiring a ton of females, promoting them. Like the team was very split as far as leadership goes. And we did a project. We had a project over the course of a couple of days where we had to work on this project every afternoon. And then we did a big presentation the second or third day. And the team I got put on were all female. I think six girls and me. And I just remember thinking when it happened, like, oh, this is cool. Because, where I was at, it was just, in leadership, there's a lot of dudes.
Right.
My current team at the time, I had a bunch of different, directors, and there was only one female on my team. A lot of our trainers, it was getting more balanced, but it was still male dominated. So I thought back, like, okay, in my entire last, decade of a career, have I ever been on a team with all girls? It was like, no, just numbers wise. And as we went through this exercise of building this workshop and what we ended up doing and what we ended up presenting, I remember having a massive takeaway in my head of like, wow, like I would not have come up with so many of these concepts. We would not have presented this way. We would not have had X, Y, Z, even with my current team that I had, who I'd built so many workshops with and training courses and presented a million times. I'm like, this product was better because we had a balance. And obviously, like, fast forward to today, which is really cool, but obviously like now it's like that's my life now.
Yeah.
So my entire leadership team, except for one person, are all female, right? And what it taught me was that, and what we've been learning, especially this year, so CK is this amazing learner. And so what you've done is you've really grasped onto the industry, and you've reached out to, Mark Quinn and Mark Kinsley and different people, and listening to podcasts, and you're reading books and trying to figure out, how do I immerse myself in this industry and grow?
Yeah.
And one thing that CK pointed out, which is really true, is that, man, there's not a lot of female executives. If you go to LinkedIn and you look up the big, we're talking the Blue Bloods, the Originals, the Sertas, and, Tempur-Pedics, and these big companies, and Sealy, and you look and you just type in that company in LinkedIn, put people, it generally rates people by their title, is how LinkedIn works. Go down that list.
Yeah.
Your first 20, 25 people, you might have one female executive. Like, it's pretty bad. And that is, really what resonated with me in wanting to launch season 2, which about, but obviously our audience doesn't. So starting literally next week, we are launching season 2, which is really exciting. And season 2 is going to be all female executives, mainly in the furniture and mattress space, but also a few that are in other industries that are very male dominated from an executive position. And so just like season 1 with Recycled Dreams, where it's like, hey, I wanted to talk about these CEOs who give back. Season 2 is really providing like a cool platform to get to know some of these different female executives, so that I think a new generation can listen and be like, hey, this is an industry that could be cool. This is a place that I could see myself growing and doing things just like you, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So when you look at the industry, like, how do you see yourself, performing in it or growing in it?
And that's a great question. And that's why I wanted to have this conversation with you, and talk more about season 2 and listen to that, because I wish I could answer that right now. And I think that therein lies the problem. And that's where we're talking about season 2 and why it should be, what it is in terms of theme of female executives. But as I'm listening to these episodes, I can see that I'm not the only one on our team alone, who's passionate about what we're doing and found a new passion in sleep, in the sleep industry, in furniture, in just holistic well-being, right? And when we're listening to these podcasts, yeah, they're all very male dominated with CEOs and how they found the road to success. So what I'm hoping to hear in season 2, and what I think I will hear, and is to get some insight and inspiration from a completely different perspective, right? So first you've got, it's like male dominated, but then you've also got the people of color. That's another group that I personally resonate with if you're watching the video and you know anything about me. But that you look at the industry and the folks that we work with right now in avocado alone, it's a very diverse group. And we want to be able to succeed. And so we have to look for these things, but where do we find it? How do we get connected? So I'm starting off by watching your videos on LinkedIn, listening to your podcast, and trying to connect with people within your group, and then try to find out who else in kind of the same position as I am in terms of trying to get up and coming, in this industry. Like, what are the tools that we're all using, and how can we help each other kind of get there and support each other? So that's where I see it kind of going. Is I think you mentioned this at one point. We're trying to represent the people who are buying mattresses from us. And yeah, if you look at the demographic of the folks who are coming into the store, it's everywhere. It's everyone. So we're gonna have to slowly tackle these things a little bit at a time. But I guess it really does start with the female executives who have found success thus far. Like, what are their stories, and can we relate in some way, shape, or form? We probably could, because if we can relate to recycled dreams in the way that we have, I'm sure that it's going to continue to inspire a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I do have to say thank you, Brett. Like, in all honesty, you didn't have to do this, right? You're a part of that, like, male, white, the mattress industry does this for like, I know I gave you away.
I'm gonna be the old white guy one.
Yeah, you totally are. But I mean, yeah, I gave it away in case you didn't know that, Brett, about Brett. But been in the industry for like a while now, over a decade, and you didn't have to do this, and you're opening up all kinds of avenues and questions and stuff like that I think are really going to get a lot of people thinking and moving in the direction that we're all headed anyway, which is more opportunities for people to understand basically how to give back and just how to do the right thing. So I appreciate that, and I think I speak for the rest of the team, giving us access to all that. So I appreciate it.
No, absolutely. So thank you so much, CK. I think at the end of the day, one of the things I'm really excited about is, just to continue to do this.
Yeah.
So CK will be the Bravo after season host every time. Obviously, like I said, we've got season 2 coming up, which is really exciting.
Super exciting.
And then once it's done, we will recap, we will talk about the takeaways, and we will bring it back each time. So thank you again, CK.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for everyone listening. And yeah, get ready for season 2.
All right, cool. I'll see you next season.